Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now I bet you're wondering why this has taken so long to come out. It's basically down to the latest movie, that's what. Same with the Nappa story actually. We wished to see what superhero could offer us in terms of the anime continuity before we would proceed with the next stages of this story and Nappa's story. But what is this story exactly, to those who are brand new to it? Well, it's all to do with the idea of Cell turning good. Or at least, a version of Cell turning good. Raised to be a much more benevolent bugman who now has kids, settled the score with his own inner monsters, and ultimately become a glowing member of the Dragon team who gives the best hugs. And yet, still can't quite escape his past when you look at it. In the last part, our Cell, who we call Android 21 thanks to Bulma, and his kiddos Mita and Condra have relaxed after the ordeal of their father having a split personality, having to deal with himself. However, thanks to the patented fighter's law, a new batch of baddies were about to loom over the horizon. Those clone fighters from the game had begun to surface around the world, with the likes of our favourite droid coming across a clone, Krillin, and despite their powers not being all that high, it was still a troubling time to be around them. And on top of that, we still have the Broly timeline. Frieza was out in space recruiting Paragus and Broly to deal with Earth 2. So we're going to be getting two threats potentially, about to collide on the same battleground of Earth. But the biggest surprise came with what looked like Android 16, who loomed into view, accompanied by what turned out to be his mother, the game version of Android 21. The two droids stared at each other, right before her key machine knocked our good boy out. Now, what was going to happen? And who was going to be claiming the moniker of 21 for good? Let's resume. The Bugman was stirring. It had barely felt like any time had passed since he had started to feel funny. Like his energy had been removed from him through bizarre and unusual practices that he was not at all familiar with. It was a terrible sensation. 21's head was hurting. His joints ached from the sudden loss of energy, and then regaining of said ki, at least to a point. His eyes took a long time to resume full functionality, still adjusting to the room that he had found himself in, even though he couldn't recall being indoors when he originally fell unconscious. Someone must have taken him here. How long had he been out? Ugh, this was a bad situation, clearly. Not to mention highly indignant. He was meant to be the perfect life form. Granted, he hadn't shown recently that he was that perfect, but surely more perfect than most of them, yeah? Still though, despite his original precedents, that woman had managed not only to knock him out for a long while seemingly, but also, as had become apparent when he tried to move, had strapped him to a machine. He couldn't sense her ki, but given his background knowledge of past fighters who could also do that, but on an almost subconscious level, he knew exactly why that was the case. He didn't want to admit it, but he had to say it. He needed to scratch that itch, as well as plenty of physical itches too on this uncomfortable table. You are an android, aren't you? Indeed. My name is Android 21, the original one. I see that someone has a nasty habit of stealing monikers. She smirked at him. No obvious trace of malice though. Or at least, not the traditional sense of malice, which was making our boy feel really uneasy. Then, there was the thought of recollection. He knew that voice, on a base, instinct, native level. He wasn't sure how or where from, but he knew that voice, like he had heard it on a regular basis at some point in his life, or possibly gestationary period? Impossible. How did you even survive all this long? We were sure that the entirety of the army had been destroyed. The other 21 rolled their eyes, as if to say that that question wasn't exactly that interesting. Oh, trust me. When it comes to the Red Ribbon Army, there are individuals like myself that know how to keep a low profile. And there are others, like our dearly departed commander, who couldn't quite keep their mouths shut. I must say, I am rather surprised by you. You are far more than the sum of your parts. You are much more powerful than I had anticipated. And yet, I'm also disappointed. how you went about going against your original programming. Even your eyes deviate from your original blueprint.
My eyes?
21 nodded. They were meant to be a pinkish red. Now yours are blue. To think that allegiance can be dictated by simple eye color. How quaint.
I should have you know that I am my own being, free from Jiro's control. Nobody tells me what to do. Everything that I have achieved is thanks to myself, my friends, and my family.
His expression was resolute, his voice unwavering. The other 21 gazed at the creation with mild pride. Even though this version of Cell was clearly a goody-goody, the original self-importance and bluster was very much intact. At least something of the original Cell had endured, she thought. Having said that, Good Boy 21 realised something as their conversation continued. He couldn't help but notice that she would wince a little bit at the mention of Jiro's name. The average person wouldn't pick it up, but he could. Maybe this was an exposed nerve. Should he go about tugging it? She sighed. Friends and family. That's an interesting way to frame it. R21 regarded her calmly, despite formulating a plan to escape in his head.
Let me make this perfectly clear. It doesn't matter how you imprison me. I have no wish in becoming a tool of yours, a tool for destruction. You should reconsider your options. My friends are stronger than I, though I hate to admit it, and can help me get rid of you. Truly put the army to bed. We don't have to do this way. Whatever you were programmed to do, let me help, instead of trying to incarcerate me like this. They can set you free. You can end this now!
The scientist looked at him for a moment. No sign of aggression. Like, maybe she was genuinely trying to hear him out. Why would you assume that I even want that? She seemed amused, playful even at that statement, after the very pregnant pause.
Trust me, none of us regretted being released from the grasp of Jiro and his insane plans. You and 16 can be free too, to do whatever you want. No catches.
The bio-android was trying to reason with her, not wanting to escalate the conflict even further. Instead, she took a small macaroon from a bowl situated on a desk and chewed it slowly, thoughtfully, before giving her response. You are under the impression, she paused to swallow the treat, that you are in a position to negotiate, that you can set conditions for me, as you most likely see yourself as the ultimate weapon of the army, right? You are mistaken. Things have changed, you see. You were once an important asset, but our creator that you mentioned had one more contingency in place in the event that you would fail. She looked at the machine, then at 21. I am that contingency. Good Boy 21 felt like his nerves had been tugged. She knew how to play him by belittling his heritage. He was meant to be the perfect being. He was supposed to be programmed that way. And here was this upstart claiming that he had been replaced. The cheek of it all. Meanwhile, the other Dragon Team members had started to gather, rounded up by Vegeta. It seemed that the attack of the Kreelones wasn't an isolated incident. The original Krillin naturally felt a little uncomfortable at the sight of so many clones of himself being not only menacing, but also being dispatched. Trunks tried to alleviate the tension. Man, this has to be pretty nasty for you to see, Uncle Krillin. Trunks looked at the police officer for a while, but Krillin tried to lighten the mood.
Well, I mean, it's flattering in a weird way, you know? Whoever did this at least viewed me as some kind of threat to the world. Huh?
No, I meant that it must be nasty to see these copies probably stronger than you. The monk's face twitched with annoyance. Krillin wanted to say something back, but he seemingly lost all the will to finish said sentence, not wanting to chew out the son of Vegeta, no matter how mean he was being to him. We must find Papa. He went after Uncle 16 and then nothing. Mita was pretty anxious about the whole situation, Vegeta trying to calm her down.
Let's not assume anything. Anything could be happening right now. Right now, reality is being turned on its head. Besides, that could be just another copy, not having anything to do with the original 16 that we frequented with.
Condra nodded at her sister. Uncle Vegeta is right, sis. We can't trust that guy, just because he looks like Uncle 16. This could all be a trap to try and bring us down through uncertainty. The conversation then got interrupted by a group of new clones that had chosen to spoil the study session. this time one of them looking like Vegeta, whilst the others were resembling Yamcha, Tenshin Han, and Nappa? What? Well, whoever had made these clones had really done their homework, Vegeta thought to himself. Our heroes had to fight against all of them, though, to Vegeta's relief, this clone of himself wasn't anywhere near his level, and he seemed a little bit unstable as well. Like the person who had made these had clearly rushed these contraptions onto the battlefield in a desperate effort to stall them. It had clearly failed.
Whoever's in charge of these is getting sloppy.
Good. He smirked his trademark smirk. As this particular scuffle was happening, the pair of 21s were in a sort of stalemate, each of them trying to supersede the other. Our good boy was still trying to reason with his female namesake, trying to stop the senseless legacy of the Red Ribbons. Sadly though, it didn't seem to yield any results in his favour. She was being extremely coy.
What are you even trying to do? Are you trying to kill me?
The woman shrugged. You'll find out soon enough. Cell. 21 scowled.
That is not my name!
Your name is not important, but your body is. You have provided me with a great amount of genetic material for me to use. The ones I had weren't the best copies going, but in your case, I have access to many interesting beings that have not graced Earth's atmosphere or doorstep in years.
And these clones of yours, they're nothing but a test?
The woman gave off an indifferent vibe. Kind of. I don't want to inject myself with anything that hasn't been properly tested. I need in-field data before I can even consider subjecting myself to something quite transformative. The zenny dropped for the good boy. She was trying to get stronger through experiments, rather than the typical means of gaining power. She wasn't trying to absorb direct energy. She was trying to manifest it through DNA. He could feel that she was dampening his powers still somewhat with some hefty device, but at least said device felt much less substantial on his very core than before. Oh, if only he had access to his full power, he could just, well, what could he do? It was becoming increasingly obvious that she had thought about almost anything that he could possibly throw at her. She had anticipated pretty much any scenario, but he still had access to one power that she had no clue about.
So, how quickly will those clones spread?
She tilted her head. Fairly quickly. They aren't meant to last for long. A lot of these technology is based upon the creatures which your Saiyan friends refer to as Cybermen. They do have their purposes that are fit for this particular brief, though.
And what is your purpose? You've been very vague.
Finish what you could not. The good boy was stunned by her brevity, and a quite droll and basic goal.
Ha! Seriously? Revenge against Goku? That's kind of cliché, don't you think?
With Son Goku alive, the betterment of the human race will not be possible. Surely you agree with me that he doesn't exactly leave well enough alone, correct? 21 chuckled.
You have a point there. There is indeed never a dull moment with Goku around. But then again, there'll be hardly any betterment of the human race with your clones knocking around, attacking innocent people!
The android woman stared into his eyes, leaving a little bit weak in the knees. If the human race are over-reliant on people such as Son Goku and his band of merry men, there will no longer be the need to grow, to innovate, to become stronger than what once was. Humanity will just exist, stand still. That's not what they were built to do, remain in place. To truly upgrade the human race, everyone has to grow.
What about those that fail to go along with your plans, then?
The sacrifice of the weak is a necessary one.
21 shook his shackled fist. I won't let you!
She looked at the fist and chuckled at the cute act of aggression, whilst being in a rather compromised state. Well, go on then. Try it. You have no power here, remember? I am the contingency. I know your weaknesses, whilst you have no idea of mine.
Oh, I think you're wrong there. I've already learnt one of your mistakes and weaknesses.
She raised an eyebrow, not understanding.
You like to talk too much.
And as he said that, a special beam cannon cut through the wall of the facility, sending sparks and debris flying across the space. Piccolo was there to save the day. The scientist looked genuinely shocked, which then gave way to feeling livid. It turns out that she wasn't aware of his telepathic abilities, the ability to communicate with others inside his mind. She was honestly left on the back foot, and as she backed off, two clones, one of Goku and the other one of Frieza, was slowly moving toward them. Using the chaos of the situation to her advantage though, the scientist decided to simply flee, whilst Piccolo freed his friend.
So, what are we up against? Friends of yours?
The Namekian asked a sly bit of sass.
Hardly. Seems that someone's trying to continue Jiro's legacy. But with a twist. She can produce those clones fairly quickly, by the way. So we need to destroy whatever's making them first and foremost. Well, let's give it a shot.
And with that, both 21 and Piccolo charged further into the facility to fight the clones and find a way to stop more of them being generated. Our good boy was still a little bit dizzy from the whole procedure, as even freeing himself from his restraints hadn't fully eliminated the cause of his bad vibe. But there was also the matter of beings from another world wanting to have a go. From orbit, Frieza and Paragus were watching the entire spectacle go down. Whilst the Space Emperor was quite happy about all this, seeing his old foes having problems with a new enemy, there was something really annoying about this entire thing that he couldn't quite shake off. Based on his scout party's findings, it turned out that someone had been creating inferior copies of himself. A second-rate Earthling menace won't be stealing his visage. Frieza was highly offended by this. Paragus?
My lord.
Upon further consideration, I think we should give your son a chance to show what he can do. I can already tell that he'll be able to destroy many Vegetas.
But we're going to be fighting against the original one too, right?
But of course. We just don't want someone to be stealing a kill from us, do we? Prepare your precious son. Let's see what they can do when a third party joins the game. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. If you like this story where Cell was different, check out this story where Broly, another hulking good boy, did the same thing, becoming a different person. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!